I am Malu Barciliano of the Ateneo Naga University. I am the Program Director of the Master in Business Administration and Master in Public Administration cluster of the Graduate School. The Ateneo Naga Graduate School has a long tradition of advancing professional competence and leadership among its students in the service of Bicol and the world. With a faculty of outstanding educators, researchers, and industry practitioners, we offer flexible asynchronous online classes so you can pursue excellent professional education at your own pace. So level up and advance your career. Be an Atenean. Choose Ateneo Naga University.
Be an Atenean. Choose Ateneo Naga University. Enroll now. Discover excellence with Ateneo Graduate School Education. Let's hear it from one of our alumna.
Ateneo Education yielded me to become the person that I am now, passionate, competitive, and reliable. I believe that education is a lifelong process and that there are still a lot of things to discover and to learn. Through Ateneo's graduate school program, I got equipped with learning that served as my shield and sword in facing the real battle called life.
Discover a more meaningful purpose in life.
Through Ateneo's education, I learned the value of being a woman for others. As a public servant and a government employee, I've been dealing with people from all walks of life. It has been challenging yet rewarding experience to be able to serve them with empathy and respect.
And excel in what you're good at.
Ateneo Education honed my leadership skills. I believe that good leaders are not only forerunners of ideas, but they can also be persuasive and encouraging mentors who can help others go beyond their expectations. Leadership is not just a sole effort of someone, but a collective effort piled up to achieve a certain goal.
Did the core values of Ateneo help you make tough decisions in life or in your career?
Yes, through the core values of Ateneo Naga University, I was able to make tough decisions, not only by using my mind but by balancing it with my heart and spirit as well. I learned to appreciate every single detail of life and career, and every single detail of life and career plays a vital role in crafting a more productive decision that would benefit more people, not only with a right decision but with a just and compassionate one as well. If you want to learn from the greatest educators in the region, enroll in Ateneo Naga University and be one of us. I'm Jeanette Toralio Mapa. I am a Senior Analyst, Communication Officer, and Acting Team Head of SSS Legazpi Branch. I graduated Masters in Business Administration in Ateneo Naga University. Be an Atenean. Choose Ateneo Naga University.
Be an Atenean. Choose Ateneo Naga University. Enroll now. Discover excellence with Ateneo Graduate School Education. Let's hear it from one of our alumnus.
The Ateneo Education has paved the way for enormous opportunities. My MPA degree served as the bridge in reaching my goals for my family and career. I have learned the importance of upholding integrity and principles in life in every situation. I have also learned that being a leader is not just the title you are holding. It's about building harmonious relationship with people for a common goal of exemplary service.
Did the core values of Ateneo help you make tough decisions in life or in your career?
Yes, definitely. Doing things for the glory of God in aspiring for excellence. Not for being a man for himself, but a man for his family and others.
Tradition, excellence, service.
I'm Alexander C. Parera. I'm a former provincial manager of a government agency. I'm a graduate of Master in Public Administration of Ateneo Naga Graduate School. I encourage you to learn and experience the Ateneo Education because of its holistic approach in learning and development. Be an Atenean. Choose Ateneo Naga University.
Hi, I am Malu Barciliano of the Ateneo Naga University. I am the Program Director of the Master in Business Administration and Master in Public Administration cluster of the Graduate School. The Ateneo Naga Graduate School has a long tradition of advancing professional competence and leadership among its students in the service of Bicol and the world. With a faculty of outstanding educators, researchers, and industry practitioners, we offer flexible asynchronous online classes so you can pursue excellent professional education at your own pace. So level up and advance your career. Be an Atenean. Choose Ateneo Naga University.
Be an Atenean. Choose Ateneo Naga University. Enroll now. Discover excellence with Ateneo Graduate School Education. Let's hear it from one of our alumna.
Ateneo Education yielded me to become the person that I am now, passionate, competitive, and reliable. I believe that education is a lifelong process and that there are still a lot of things to discover and to learn. Through Ateneo's graduate school program, I got equipped with learning that served as my shield and sword in facing the real battle called life.
Discover a more meaningful purpose in life.
Through Ateneo's education, I learned the value of being a woman for others. As a public servant and a government employee, I've been dealing with people from all walks of life. It has been challenging yet rewarding experience to be able to serve them with empathy and respect.
And excel in what you're good at.
Ateneo Education honed my leadership skills. I believe that good leaders are not only forerunners of ideas, but they can also be persuasive and encouraging mentors who can help others go beyond their expectations. Leadership is not just a sole effort of someone, but a collective effort piled up to achieve a certain goal.
Did the core values of Ateneo help you make tough decisions in life or in your career?
Yes, through the core values of Ateneo Naga University, I was able to make tough decisions, not only by using my mind but by balancing it with my heart and spirit as well. I learned to appreciate every single detail of life and career, and every single detail of life and career plays a vital role in crafting a more productive decision that would benefit more people, not only with a right decision but with a just and compassionate one as well. If you want to learn from the greatest educators in the region, enroll in Ateneo Naga University and be one of us. I'm Jeanette Toralio Mapa. I am a Senior Analyst, Communication Officer, and Acting Team Head of SSS Legazpi Branch. I graduated Masters in Business Administration in Ateneo Naga University. Be an Atenean. Choose Ateneo Naga University.
Be an Atenean. Choose Ateneo Naga University. Enroll now. Discover excellence with Ateneo Graduate School Education. Let's hear it from one of our alumnus.
The Ateneo Education has paved the way for enormous opportunities. My MPA degree served as the bridge in reaching my goals for my family and career. I have learned the importance of upholding integrity and principles in life in every situation. I have also learned that being a leader is not just the title you are holding. It's about building harmonious relationship with people for a common goal of exemplary service.
Did the core values of Ateneo help you make tough decisions in life or in your career?
Yes, definitely. Doing things for the glory of God in aspiring for excellence. Not for being a man for himself, but a man for his family and others.
Tradition, excellence, service.
I'm Alexander C. Parera. I'm a former provincial manager of a government agency. I'm a graduate of Master in Public Administration of Ateneo Naga Graduate School. I encourage you to learn and experience the Ateneo Education because of its holistic approach in learning and development. Be an Atenean. Choose Ateneo Naga University.
Hi, I am Malu Barciliano of the Ateneo Naga University. I am the Program Director of the Master in Business Administration and Master in Public Administration cluster of the Graduate School. The Ateneo Naga Graduate School has a long tradition of advancing professional competence and leadership among its students in the service of Bicol and the world. With a faculty of outstanding educators, researchers, and industry practitioners, we offer flexible asynchronous online classes so you can pursue excellent professional education at your own pace. So level up and advance your career. Be an Atenean. Choose Ateneo Naga University.
Be an Atenean. Choose Ateneo Naga University. Enroll now. Discover excellence with Ateneo Graduate School Education. Let's hear it from one of our alumna.
Ateneo Education yielded me to become the person that I am now, passionate, competitive, and reliable. I believe that education is a lifelong process and that there are still a lot of things to discover and to learn. Through Ateneo's graduate school program, I got equipped with learning that served as my shield and sword in facing the real battle called life.
Discover a more meaningful purpose in life.
Through Ateneo's education, I learned the value of being a woman for others. As a public servant and a government employee, I've been dealing with people from all walks of life. It has been challenging yet rewarding experience to be able to serve them with empathy and respect.
And excel in what you're good at.
Ateneo Education honed my leadership skills. I believe that good leaders are not only forerunners of ideas, but they can also be persuasive and encouraging mentors who can help others go beyond their expectations. Leadership is not just a sole effort of someone, but a collective effort piled up to achieve a certain goal.
Did the core values of ADNU help you make tough decisions in life or in your career?
Yes, through the core values of Ateneo Naga University, I was able to make tough decisions, not only by using my mind but by balancing it with my heart and spirit as well. I learned to appreciate every single detail of life and career, and every single detail of life and career plays a vital role in crafting a more productive decision that would benefit more people, not only with a right decision but with a just and compassionate one as well. If you want to learn from the greatest educators in the region, enroll in Ateneo Naga University and be one of us. I'm Jeanette Toralio Mapa. I am a Senior Analyst, Communication Officer, and Acting Team Head of SSS Legazpi Branch. I graduated Masters in Business Administration in Ateneo Naga University. Be an Atenean, choose Ateneo Naga University.
Be an Atenean. Choose Ateneo Naga University. Enroll now. Discover excellence with ADNU Graduate School Education. Let's hear it from one of our alumnus.
The Ateneo Education has paved the way for enormous opportunities. My MPA degree served as the bridge in reaching my goals for my family and career. I have learned the importance of upholding integrity and principles in life in every situation. I have also learned that being a leader is not just the title you are holding. It's about building harmonious relationship with people for a common goal of exemplary service.
Did the core values of ADNU help you make tough decisions in life or in your career?
Yes, definitely. Doing things for the glory of God in aspiring for excellence. Not for being a man for himself, but a man for his family and others.
Tradition, excellence, service.
I'm Alexander C. Parera. I'm a former provincial manager of a government agency. I'm a graduate of Master in Public Administration of Ateneo Naga Graduate School. I encourage you to learn and experience the Ateneo Education because of its holistic approach in learning and development. Be an Atenean. Choose Ateneo Naga University.
Hi, I am Malu Barciliano of the Ateneo Naga University. I am the Program Director of the Master in Business Administration and Master in Public Administration cluster of the Graduate School. The Ateneo Naga Graduate School has a long tradition of advancing professional competence and leadership among its students in the service of Bicol and the world. With a faculty of outstanding educators, researchers, and industry practitioners, we offer flexible asynchronous online classes so you can pursue excellent professional education at your own pace. So level up and advance your career. Be an Atenean. Choose Ateneo Naga University.
Be an Atenean. Choose Ateneo Naga University. Discover excellence with Ateneo Graduate School Education. Let's hear it from one of our alumna.
Ateneo Education yielded me to become the person that I am now, passionate, competitive, and reliable. I believe that education is a lifelong process and that there are still a lot of things to discover and to learn. Through Ateneo's graduate school program, I got equipped with learning that served as my shield and sword in facing the real battle called life.
Discover a more meaningful purpose in life.
Through Ateneo's education, I learned the value of being a woman for others. As a public servant and a government employee, I've been dealing with people from all walks of life. It has been challenging yet rewarding experience to be able to serve them with empathy and respect.
And excel in what you're good at.
Ateneo Education honed my leadership skills. I believe that good leaders are not only forerunners of ideas, but they can also be persuasive and encouraging mentors who can help others go beyond their expectations. Leadership is not just a sole effort of someone, but a collective effort piled up to achieve a certain goal.
Did the core values of ADNU help you make tough decisions in life or in your career?
Yes, through the core values of Ateneo Naga University, I was able to make tough decisions, not only by using my mind but by balancing it with my heart and spirit as well. I learned to appreciate every single detail of life and career, and every single detail of life and career plays a vital role in crafting a more productive decision that would benefit more people, not only with a right decision but with a just and compassionate one as well. If you want to learn from the greatest educators in the region, enroll in Ateneo Naga University and be one of us. I'm Jeanette Toralio Mapa. I am a Senior Analyst, Communication Officer, and Acting Team Head of SSS Legazpi Branch. I graduated Masters in Business Administration in Ateneo Naga University. Be an Atenean, choose Ateneo Naga University.
Be an Atenean. Choose Ateneo Naga University. Enroll now. Graduate School Education. Let's hear it from one of our alumnus.
The Ateneo Education has paved the way for enormous opportunities. My MPA degree served as the bridge in reaching my goals for my family and career. I have learned the importance of upholding integrity and principles in life in every situation. I have also learned that being a leader is not just the title you are holding. It's about building harmonious relationships with people for a common goal of exemplary service.
Did the core values of ADNU help you make tough decisions in life or in your career?
Yes, definitely. Doing things for the glory of God and aspiring for excellence. Not for being a man for himself, but a man for his family and others.
Tradition, excellence, service.
I'm Alexander C. Parera. I'm a former provincial manager of a government agency. I'm a graduate of Master in Public Administration of Ateneo Naga Graduate School. I encourage you to learn and experience the Ateneo Education because of its holistic approach in learning and development. Be an Atenean. Choose Ateneo Naga University.
Hi, I am Malu Barciliano of the Ateneo Naga University. I am the Program Director of the Master in Business Administration and Master in Public Administration cluster of the Graduate School. The Ateneo Naga Graduate School has a long tradition of advancing professional competence and leadership among its students in the service of Bicol and the world. With a faculty of outstanding educators, researchers, and industry practitioners, we offer flexible asynchronous online classes so you can pursue excellent professional education at your own pace. So level up and advance your career. Be an Atenean. Choose Ateneo Naga University.
Be an Atenean. Choose Ateneo Naga University. Enroll now. Discover excellence with ADNU Graduate School Education. Let's hear it from one of our alumna.
Ateneo Education yielded me to become the person that I am now, passionate, competitive, and reliable. I believe that education is a lifelong process and that there are still a lot of things to discover and to learn. Through Ateneo's graduate school program, I got equipped with learning that served as my shield and sword in facing the real battle called life.
Discover a more meaningful purpose in life.
Through Ateneo's education, I learned the value of being a woman for others. As a public servant and a government employee, I've been dealing with people from all walks of life. It has been challenging yet rewarding experience to be able to serve them with empathy and respect.
And excel in what you're good at.
Ateneo Education honed my leadership skills. I believe that good leaders are not only forerunners of ideas, but they can also be persuasive and encouraging mentors who can help others go beyond their expectations. Leadership is not just a sole effort of someone, but a collective effort piled up to achieve a certain goal.
Did the core values of ADNU help you make tough decisions in life or in your career?
Yes, through the core values of Ateneo Naga University, I was able to make tough decisions, not only by using my mind but by balancing it with my heart and spirit as well. I learned to appreciate every single detail of life and career, and every single detail of life and career plays a vital role in crafting a more productive decision that would benefit more people, not only with a right decision but with a just and compassionate one as well. If you want to learn from the greatest educators in the region, enroll in Ateneo Naga University and be one of us. I'm Jeanette Toralio Mapa. I am a Senior Analyst, Communication Officer, and Acting Team Head of SSS Legazpi Branch. I graduated Masters in Business Administration in Ateneo Naga University. Be an Atenean, choose Ateneo Naga University.
Be an Atenean. Choose Ateneo Naga University. Enroll now. Discover excellence with ADNU Graduate School Education. Let's hear it from one of our alumnus.
The Ateneo Education has paved the way for enormous opportunities. My MPA degree served as the bridge in reaching my goals for my family and career. I have learned the importance of upholding integrity and principles in life in every situation. I have also learned that being a leader is not just the title you are holding. It's about building harmonious relationship with people for a common goal of exemplary service.
Did the core values of ADNU help you make tough decisions in life or in your career?
Yes, definitely. Doing things for the glory of God in aspiring for excellence. Not for being a man for himself, but a man for his family and others.
Tradition, excellence, service.
I'm Alexander.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Reset All Set Remaking Operation Systems in response to the COVID-19 pandemic webinar. I'm Catherine M. Paterno, and I will be your moderator for this webinar. So let us formally start with a prayer to be led by Ms. Carla Duran. Let us put ourselves in the presence of God.
Heavenly Father, we ask for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this webinar. Help us to focus our hearts and minds now on what we are about to learn. Inspire us by your Holy Spirit as we listen. We pray for your love and compassion to abound us as we walk through this challenging season. We ask all this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
So good morning once again. Allow me to give you a brief background on the activity. So the Reset All Set Remaking Operation Systems in response to the COVID-19 pandemic webinar is organized by the students of 2020-2 MBA 233 in coordination with the Center for Local Governance. So this aims to uncover the methods and approaches of different industries in terms of their operation systems in response to the changes brought about by the pandemic. This webinar will be beneficial, especially for micro, small, medium enterprises falling under the same or in relation to the industries that will be tackled. So energy, food, education, and banking. Insights on successful strategies and operations, as well as industry-specific methods used to overcome the challenges of this pandemic, will be gained through the keynote speaker, as well as the class speakers representing the said industries. So at the end of the webinar, a better understanding on how each industry contributes to the economy and the difficulties they encountered or are still currently encountering, and how it changed the industry landscape is expected. So we hope for your active listening and participation during this event. So before we formally start, let us be mindful of these guidelines for today. The webinar entitled Reset, All Set, Remaking Operation Systems in Response to the COVID-19 Pandemic is open to the public for free, and it can be accessed live via the YouTube channel, Ateneo Center for Local Governance, and the Facebook page, Ateneo CLG. For the participants, please leave a comment with the format for example, Catherine Paterno, have registered, present, to confirm your attendance. So if you have any questions, please comment on the platform you are using. And I highly encourage you to post questions while the presentation is ongoing, so your question will not be forgotten. I will acknowledge these questions and read them later during the open forum. At the end of the webinar, we will be sending a link for the evaluation form in both platforms. So we will leave it in the comment section. Please take note that for you to receive your e-certificates, you must be 1, registered. You should have confirmed attendance with a format full name, have registered, present. And after the webinar, you should have completely filled out the evaluation form. So the e-certificates will be sent via email. So we will be asking you for your patience beforehand. This might take a while, the e-certificates. So lastly, we may request you to turn off your microphone for the duration of the event to avoid distractions for those in the call. So at this point, may I now call on Ms. Ivy Catherine Eduardo to introduce our keynote speaker.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was on mute a while ago. Okay, again, our guest speaker is a consistent top performer and trailblazer for the last 15 years in the bank, achieving multiple awards for himself and his team. Some of these include being a 4-time champion of the Unibank Excellence Award winner in various categories, and Unibank Search for Model Quality Teams. He graduated cum laude with a degree of BS Management from the University of the Philippines, Visayas, and finished his Master of Management degree from the same university. He was awarded the Excellence in Management and the recipient of the UP Presidential Leadership Grant, both for his undergrad and graduate studies due to his leadership achievements in and out of the campus. He is the university's first graduate student recipient of the said grant. He leads BPI Family Savings Bank largest division with almost 400 personnel covering diverse functions such as collections, customer care, contact center, loans review, foreclosure, and acquired assets management. He is also the chief administrator of Bank's 19 retail loan centers nationwide. He is a father to three young daughters who inspires him to take good care of his team like a good father would. Everyone, let's give a warm welcome to one of BPI's youngest assistant vice presidents, Dexter Lloyd Cuajotor.
Thank you very much, Ivy, and hello, everybody. Good morning to all of you. I hope that this Saturday morning you're all ready to reset, as the title of this forum. Allow me to share my slides to all of you this morning. All right, so let me begin. Can I feel some energy from everybody joining us? Hello to all of you. I hope you're all doing well, and I hope you had your breakfast already before I proceed. It's nice to see to those who have the cameras on, nice to see all of you. To the everyone tuning to us in your communities in Facebook and in YouTube, hello and good morning to all of you. I'm excited to share with you what we've done to survive this crisis. But first, let me tell you, what do I think of the crisis? Uh, I really think it sucks. And sucks stands for it's shocking because it felt like at first it was just a page in a novel or from a TV series or what you see in the movies, but it's happening right before your eyes. It's uncertain. We don't know what's gonna happen. We can't see the enemy. It's chaotic, as you can see. It's a knowledge black hole. You have to search for that information. There's a vacuum of knowledge. You have to look for it and search for that information. And as you know, it's suffering intensive, as you can see all over the country. Here's few numbers, not to bore you with details, but just to give you a backdrop of our numbers in the country. This is from NEDA. In the first quarter of 2020, growth rate plummeted to negative 0.7 on the left of your screen. By the end of quarter four in 2020, it's at negative 8.5%. Full year 2020, growth negative 9.5%. And the projection is that the pre-pandemic growth will likely be reached or will be able to recover in 2022 or late 2023. The country today, we have a very sorry reputation, us having the highest COVID-19 caseload this part of Asia and having the economy that's slowest to recover. And this is largely attributable to the differences in the health system capacity and the government's response to the situation. Let me zero in, everybody, to the levels of NPLs in the country. And as Ivy mentioned, I am in charge of one of my functions for the bank is to handle the collections. And I'm sharing this with you. This data came from the IMF World Outlook and given to us by CRIF. CRIF is a knowledge company, end-to-end knowledge company that specializes in credit investigation, credit information. So sharing with you these few items because this is what I handle for the bank. NPL stands for non-performing loans. The projection, ladies and gentlemen, is that India, the Philippines, and the UAE will keep the highest level of NPL ratio, with India expected to exceed 20%. Other countries like Austria, China, Indonesia, Switzerland, and the UK will also have huge increase of the NPL volumes. So for banks of all countries, this is going to be the number one priority. In fact, in my case, this is my wildly important goal so that I can manage the bank's NPL levels. Why is debt collection the new focus? Because NPLs have gradually increased since the beginning of last year. There was a sharp jump post-moratorium. If you're familiar with Bayanihan 1 and 2, However, it's not only in the Philippines. All of the other economies too have contracted worldwide, but they're now slowly recovering, and we're still behind. How peso now, good side is that where capital adequacy ratio stands at 16.7%, better than what's required. And peso is appreciating against the US dollar and other benchmarking currencies. Why is then NPL is very important to manage? Why should you care? When you run an organization like banks and you are in the lending side, how is this important? And as an ordinary consumer, what does this mean to you? High NPL means lower profitability for the institution, lower collection of um, net interest income, higher regulatory requirements. This will have cascading effect on high funding costs. Baka magmahal yung interest on the loans. Additional cost to manage non-performing assets on the side of the bank, and negative impacts to the economy. So this is what I do for the bank, and this is my widely important goal to manage. Charles Dickens in The Tale of Two Cities, I think this has been mentioned by our leaders too of the bank, that captured perfectly the situation. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity, it was the season of light, it was a season of darkness, it was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. While it's bad, there's some good side. While there are losses, there's also an upside to this crisis. So ladies and gentlemen tuning in this morning, welcome to my talk. It's Workplace Reimagined, and I'm sharing with you personal lessons I have learned and what we did and how to win in this new normal. When I assumed my function late in 2019, November, I was so ready to win. And I was armed with my 3-point agenda on digitalization and centralization, loan lifecycle portfolio management. And my goal really was to be the best retail loans portfolio manager in the country, not just in the Unibank, but really in the country. I was so ready, had everything planned so that I could win. But then COVID happened. So the question was, do I just give up on the vision of becoming the best? Or you reset and see what can you do and challenge yourself? Do you just give up on your original vision because things have changed? Or you keep at it? Those were the questions I had to answer for myself at the beginning of the year last year. But I'm reminded by what Alexander Dumas wrote. What makes a man is what he does when the storm comes. Because certainly it's so easy to win when everything's set out for you and everything's just there. But when there is adversity, how do you rise over that? It's easy to sink in the abyss of incredulity and just be paralyzed and not move forward anymore. I knew what my non-negotiable is. Peter Drucker says in planning, number one, be absolutely sure on the things that you don't want to change. Number two, be open to change absolutely everything else. So I resolved last year that I will insist and I will keep on pressing on about my vision of becoming the best in the country. So big lessons that I'll share with you. Number one is to be stubborn on the vision, but flexible on the details. And what do I mean by this? And I'm sure for those who have businesses, as you've mentioned in the introduction, MSMEs, you can also learn from what we did. And these were our strategic imperatives that we considered. Here, we looked into importance versus touch intensity. What I did was to really map out everything that's being done in the division, down to the little details, the processes, the functions, and identified importance versus touch intensity. If you can see in this diagram, just to make it easy for all of you for reference, for functions that have high importance or very essential and high touch intensity, meaning it has to be done face to face, you have to um, communicate, reach out to your customers. We have to adapt. We had to be on site. When there are dependencies, for example, on systems that can only be done on site, then we adapted. We created teams A, B, and C. One is on site, B is remote, C is hybrid. When it's the next quadrant, let's go counterclockwise. When it's highly important but low touch intensity, we digitalize. And by digitalize, we created databases, we created loan appointment system, made use of our website to communicate to our clients. Luckily, we didn't have in the division something that's of low touch intensity and low importance, so we did not have to reinvent. But for other divisions, for example, in sales, when there's no volume at that moment, then they had to reinvent. They had to be retooled to help us in customer care and collections. And then we pivot, incremental changes, okay? Incremental changes to make sure that you're able to still address what is going on. These are for items that have high touch intensity, yet low importance. So which we, for example, negotiations used to be done face-to-face for clients asking for settlements. We set up Bella. Bella is the BPI Family Savings Bank electronic loans advisor. It's really just doing things via WebEx. And for businesses, I'm sure this is really what happened. For restaurants, for example, they had to pivot. If they are just doing dine-in, they had to do delivery. And the delivery services actually proliferated all over the country during the pandemic. This is the first imperative that I considered. Second, I looked into growth versus efficiency. The same set of functions, the same set of processes, I mapped out versus what's the current level of efficiency today? How good are we in our processes versus potential for growth? For those functions or departments or teams with high efficiency and high potential for growth, we added resources, meaning I continued to invest in them, added more people because they had something to do, and expanded the organization, expanded the team, so that they're capable of handling larger spans of control. And then for teams that have high potential for growth, yet very not very low, but a little challenge in the current efficiency, I figured out they needed team development. So they needed leaders, team engagements, so that they can develop. I went as far as getting someone from another team, just to make sure that this particular team will develop and will actually move to high efficiencies. And then for items that have low potential for growth, low current efficiency, we just simply replace them or propose to replace them or outsource them. For those with current very high efficiencies, but already medium to low potential for growth, we just continue to develop them, make sure that they continue to produce and the level of efficiencies will be maintained. So we do total quality projects and process improvements in Six Sigma, if you're familiar. The third one, and I hope I couldn't see the rest of you, but I hope you're listening still and you're tuning in. This one is very important to me. This is by McKinsey. It's 7S of strategy, and I'm sure you're familiar. It was important to trace that everything's consistent. I was sure that the strategy is to double down on the 3-point agendas I've mentioned, to stick to the vision. But structure always follows strategy, meaning we were willing to change everything as far as structure is concerned. Certain things that were centralized before had to be decentralized. Things that were decentralized had to be centralized. Things that had to be done hyper locally, meaning per unit, had to be regionalized. We had those adjustments. And systems, because we couldn't purchase, we don't have unlimited resources to fund for projects or get vendors. We had to build things on our own. And this can be done by everybody. If you have little knowledge on database, then you can, to a certain degree, automate your manual processes. And this is what the team did. um, it was also very important to know the skills. I had to do a talent survey, and for organizations, it's very important. I'm not in HR, and you cannot rely to HR to give you very localized information. So for me to know what kind of talent do I have in the division and identify the gaps, I needed to do the talent survey so I would know what's necessary. And I realized not a lot of people are have high computer skills because they were not in the first place hired to be like that. So I knew about those gaps and I've identified talents, and then I was able to assign certain projects to certain people because I knew they're capable of doing things or they're interested. Because, mind you, there are people in the organization who may not be doing, who have other interests and they pursue those interests outside of work. And you're only able to tap to that when you know what they're capable of. And then the staff, I have a very young staff, largely millennials and Gen Z. So if you know the profile, so I'm taking advantage of the energy of the drive, but also they can complain and they're very vocal and they're very open, and they will tell you straight what they think of things. And I was very sure of the style that we drive for excellence, empowerment, and continuous engagement. And in the middle of that really was our campaign for the vision and the theme. And in 2020, my theme was to do more and be more. And it was communicated to everyone and actually repeated at every chance we get. So we get to campaign for that. And I just had a confirmation last week in our recent survey because we asked everyone in the team what they think. And 97% um, declared that they understood the vision, that they know what they're supposed to do, and they know how they can contribute. So those strategic imperatives were very important to me. And I'm sure those are also something that can be applied to other industries. Second, very important to campaign for shift of mindsets. Mindset will really separate the best from the rest. Exceptional success requires exceptional circumstances. As I've mentioned, it's easy to succeed when everything's right before you and you're given all the resources. But if you really want to win, can you win during adverse circumstances? How agile are you to adjust? And it has to begin here in your mindset. Buddha said, what you feel, you attract. But what you imagine, you create. What you think, you become. So it has to be here. And you have to have the proper mindsets. In fact, these three are part of our career. Process driven, very conscious to shift the mindset from process driven to customer focus. What do I mean by that? If you used to have certain guidelines and requirements, and you say you require someone to pick up a document in your office, but during the pandemic, it's not possible. Your clients are afraid to go to the bank. So, how will you do that? And if you insist on your own processes, you will never be able to help your customers. So always take the point of view of the customers. Focus and in fact, what I say is to be obsessed about the customer and trace the pain points. What don't they like? What will they appreciate? What do they need today? And we did a lot of things. Set up loan appointment system so that they don't have to go to the office. To a certain degree, allowed a drive-through pickup of certain documents just to address the concerns of our, especially the senior customers. From silos to collaboration, the second point. Silos meaning, well, to put it simply, when people just operate in their own shell and they don't coordinate, they don't collaborate, that's a silo. And we had to bust silos so that we can collaborate. In fact, I forced this so people would collaborate. My mother theme is really one division, one LSI. That's the name of my division in the back, one LSR. Because as Ivy mentioned, we're spread across. I have one in the office, a big team, but we're spread across the country. So and there are different departments, there are different functions. We had to campaign that we're just one and we're forcing reciprocity. You have to collaborate for you to win. It was really a campaign to explain to everybody that they are part of the value chain. They're part of the value chain. And in the railway to success, you have to build on each other's tracks. So what we did was to really create very important ad hoc teams, in-source management team to address insourcing, PROC for the projects, restructuring team, bayanihan adjustment, communications and contact, the things that are very important to consider. And you have to pull people together from different backgrounds, from different teams, and really harness their strength and make sure that you're there to support. Because at the very beginning, there will be adjustments and there will be bickering and there will be a little conflict, storming before the norming. So you have to be there and to be able to support and monitor the development of those teams. But these were very, very helpful. In fact, up to today, these are still existing teams because we're still monitoring very important items. Third is from playing safe to taking ownership. We had to establish accountability, and everyone needs to take responsibility and understand what their role is and how they will contribute. So that's very important imperatives. Third, win from home, because we have to a certain degree set up remotely because not everyone can be on site and there are several restrictions, but you can't stop the world from turning just because you had to stay at home. You have to find a way how to win from home. And here's what we did. We engaged, we empowered, we educated them, and we made sure that they can execute. Engage. Just just to give you an example, at the height of the pandemic, we launched Just Dance from, it's actually Zumba via WebEx. We dubbed this as from social distancing to social dancing. You can find Ivy somewhere in the bottom picture. She's one of those personnel in red from Naga. It was fun. It was done simultaneously all over the country. It's an upside of the crisis. Everyone can still get together, albeit online, just like what we're doing today. This will not be possible if in case we didn't have technology, because really the WebEx and Zoom were really just accelerated during the pandemic, and everyone realized, yeah, you can do things even if you don't really have to be together. And we had to make it fun, and even people from their homes participated during Just Dance. I also had to do GLC live because I knew that the cheapest way to communicate and to quickly reach everybody is to go through Facebook. Mind you, I wasn't really comfortable doing that, exposing yourself there, and it's live. I know today is live too, but there's a little preparation to this. But when you do live, everything can happen, and it was very quick. And I realized that should be the new way to communicate to everybody now, because that's what's appreciated by the team. They're young, as I've mentioned, they're millennials and they're Gen Z, and for sure it's true for everybody. Communication today, especially during this time, has to be interactive, has to be inclusive, intimate, because when you do live, it's as if you're talking to them. You can see their comments, you can see their reactions, and really you get to interact with them directly. So had to do that. In my first live, it was just me, and then in my next sessions, I had topics to share, and I even had guests. So even if you're not comfortable as a leader, on your own, you have to reset too, so that you think of your people first before yourself, and you'd have to give up your comforts and think of what's better for the team. You just simply have to do it. We made sure we educated them. Trainings before this pandemic had to be via the classroom. You gather people to go to head office to be trained. I was just very lucky. I have the best people in the team who quickly made webinars and created programs to train people. For those who couldn't access the webinar, they don't have internet, I asked them to research, to read books and submit to me what they have found out. Learn from history, learn from the 97 crisis, how people survived then. And maybe there's something we can pick up from those materials that we're able to find. And yes, they did. And quickly, we launched training now via the web. In fact, we have a new program running this year that's similar to mini series, like just as quick as a TikTok video or a series in Netflix, because that's a new way to learn today. And we made sure we get to empower, and we established the network of leaders from as far north as Lawag down to Zamboanga. So we made sure that we constantly communicate and build their confidence so that they can decide. And in fact, they will actually expand you and allow you to do things if you have established a relationship, accountability, and that you can see that they're really trustworthy. And it takes time, but you have to learn also how to trust that these people um, will stand on a platform of respect and commitment, and that they will do everything. And I'm very happy with the set of leaders that I have in the organization. Last would be to execute. It's very important to measure what matters and inspect what you expect. What is not monitored is not being done. It, it, it takes a lot of effort for leaders. It takes a lot of effort for business owners, for division heads, for whoever, but leaders to monitor performance. And it doesn't have to be just the lag result that you will monitor. By lag result, say for example in sales, you want to achieve 1 million by month end. You don't just wait for month end to see if you have achieved the 1 million. You also measure the lead behaviors. What will it take for you to reach 1 million? Maybe 100 sales calls per week or turn-ins per day. The lead behaviors will matter so that you know that you're guaranteed to reach your target at the very end. Let me show you a video which we played during last year's planning, and I hope this will run properly with you. Let me just share. Wait. But anyway, I will just send a copy to Ivy, but it was really just a showcase of what we're doing and what we have done for the bank. So to all of you, in summary, the three big lessons I have learned, personal lessons actually, that I'm sharing to all of you, is one, to insist on the vision, but be flexible on the details. At the very beginning, I told you I wanted to be the best. By the end of the year, industry was at rates was at 8%. We were way below that. So I could say we were able to achieve the target. But however, we're not yet out of the woods. We're still working to make sure that we get to reach our targets this year. Second, to veer away from negative mindsets. Again, positive mindset to everyone. In fact, if you've read The Secret, it's really just about that. You have to have positive mindset, and you win from home. So Just so you can remember this, it's IVY. IV your way through this crisis. She gets the acronym because she invited me today. But that would make it easy for you to remember the lessons. Very important. Viktor Frankl in Man's Search for Meaning said that in between a stimulus and a response, there is space. And in that space is your freedom to choose. So I hope that you will choose to win in this crisis. Because while I said it sucks, there's an upside to it. While it's shocking, we were able to learn how to react quickly, how to be agile, and how to reach out to everyone. While it's uncertain, we learned how to trust, especially up above, to trust our teammates, to trust our families, to trust to a certain degree great leaders whom we see can still, there's still hope for this nation. So for this country, so we trust. And when there's chaos, there's still opportunity. We found opportunities. For you, you're here in school. For some, they were able to launch businesses at home. That's become hyper local, the businesses. So there is opportunity in chaos. And while it's a knowledge black hole, we were taught how to be discerning. And while it's suffering intensive, we've become resilient and hopeful. Billy Quick really put it well that hope separates the quitters of today from the winners of tomorrow. Maya Angelou said that when you thought that really um, the, the sun wouldn't shine anymore, God sent the rainbow. So to all of you, believe you have the power to choose, to change, and to take control. It's in you. My pleasure to join you this morning. You're all set. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sir Dexter Lloyd Cuajotor. So the crisis indeed sucks. I agree, sir. So it's shocking, uncertain, chaotic. We need more knowledge to uncover it, and we are suffering intensively because of it. But we have also learned that from the banking industry, the focus shifted to the debt collection because of the increase in NPL globally. Of course, it's very important in the profitability. So personally, I have three key takeaways from you, sir. So we should have the same goal, but be creative on how to get them. From the can't do to the can do attitude. So we should all be accountable for our actions, and we should be flexible. We can work from home, but we can also win too. We should make use of the modern technology that we have right now. So let us all choose to win. So thank you very much, Sir Dexter.
Thank you, Kat.
So, yes, allow me to introduce our first resource speaker from the class. He's a graduate of the Bachelor of Science in Hotel and Restaurant Management from the Mariners Polytechnic Colleges, and he is responsible for directing the daily operations, for ensuring the highest quality products and services to the customers as the General Manager of the PPI Holdings Incorporated. Let us all welcome Mr. Kevin Abiog.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Catherine. So, over the past 7 years in my role as the manager of an international food industry company here in the Philippines, I have seen a lot of struggles, trials, and tribulations. But today, I'm going to be talking about the COVID-19 impact on food industries. So, basically, food industries are somehow one of the backbones of our economy and many of our communities because as we all know, food is one of our basic needs and it is very essential like lugaw with egg. They are essential nowadays. Food industry itself is based on social interaction. So unfortunately, it's been uniquely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Food industries are very tenacious. They don't have a lot of cash reserves, and they go from day to day and to week to week to get a cash. And that's the fact. With the dine-in ban coming into effect across the across the cities and across the country, the only thing food industries can turn to make money right now is takeout and delivery. The Philippines is home to more than 1 million restaurants. So a lot of restaurants, from five-star hotel to standalone fancy dining to casual eat, they have converted to takeout and delivery only until they are given the okay to resume to normal operations. In March 2020, as COVID-19 cases surged in the Philippines, government leaders began shutting down many markers of Philippines' life, including food industries, hospitality industries, and different offices and many more businesses. The stay-at-home initiatives closed a lot of restaurants and many more businesses in the entire nation. So this initiative is one of the worst cases scenario for many businesses owners because it is a huge blow to our restaurant owners who do a large catering businesses, because it's either they can maintain and sustain the restaurant, or they are just gonna close it permanently. That's the worst thing and worst scenario that can happen to the restaurants if they're going to close their restaurants. So the government ordered shutdown are part of a larger effort to enforce social distancing and limit large gathering of people in order to tamp down on the coronavirus spread and that sudden disappearance of large gathering of people. For smaller and independent restaurants, this is simply a tidal wave. We've never seen anything where you are seeing a nationwide shutdown targeting one particular industry, including food industries, that's been going on for a year now. So some restaurants are getting hit from another angle, whether large or small, are doing the best they can to navigate the economic shock brought by the pandemic containment initiatives. So the COVID-19 shutdowns are probably the biggest existential crisis that this industry has ever faced. So restaurants in the Philippines are measure aim to slow the spread of the coronavirus pandemic. And of course, as implemented by the government, by the IATF, it is for us to follow all the safety protocols and safety measures for everyone's safety, because at the end of the day, it's still our safety that matters. The number of people dining inside the restaurants was on that decade-long downward trajectory. Casual dining as a whole has been in trouble long before coronavirus began to spread around the country. So it's like 54%, or 6 out of 10 restaurants nationwide are currently open for takeout and delivery basis. It makes sense because restaurants aren't having people come in and sit down, because nobody knows how people will feel about being in public with a still present threat from COVID-19. So during the coronavirus pandemic, some restaurants have shifted to takeout and delivery in the interest of feeding communities and to bring in at least some cash to sustain and maintain the business open, and not letting it close the door permanently. So 75 of all small businesses have already reported some sort of hit of interruption for the COVID-19 pandemic. Other restaurant chairs, restaurant boards, CEO, and big bosses are reinventing their approach to expected changes in the future, like fewer tables for more decency, and of course, as mandated by the government protocol, to reduce the seating capacity from 100% to 50% only to observe social distancing inside the restaurants. Disposable menu and table tablets were also implemented in reducing customers' exposure, just like what Max's in SM and Shakey's, Pizza Hut, and many more restaurants, they have this disposable placemat that they are using that includes all the products and the foods that they are offering. So there are some also who are providing QR code for ordering via phone, just like what you're seeing in front of Jollibee's, McDo, and many more restaurants, the QR code that they have in front of their cashiers. So there are also shrinking of staff size and, unfortunately, the rising of menu prices to make up for drop of sales. Anyway, the way of changes coming, these restaurants deal under plates and others are reviewing their approach too. Despite the empty tables, restaurants were deemed essential businesses and allowed to stay open, and most of them are operating a quarter half capacity in order to serve the community. Mobile delivery applications has exploded in popularity. So a lot of restaurants are hopping into the delivery applications. And for what it's worth, during the coronavirus outbreak, some third-party applications like Grab, Foodpanda, Hungryly, and many more are waiving some of these commission fees, regardless how long can restaurants afford to just do takeout and deliveries. So we've seen about 5 times a lot of restaurants signing up to these different applications, mobile applications. They're really needing this in order to survive right now. So they have a distribution channel from their food distributor where now they can all sell their products to their local communities. But restaurants have had a somewhat fraught relationship with delivery in recent years. The surge of delivery orders wasn't exactly boosting restaurant bottom line, which is the sales. So because the third party delivery applications charges restaurant pricey commission fees to use their service applications. They are charging the restaurants up to 25 to 30% in some cases. To the restaurants, it is a cut into them like already thin profit margins. So if you look at full service restaurants, and for them, delivery has never been something that makes a lot of money and a lot of revenue for them. But at least it's good to sustain their business open. Better have it than nothing. So the food is pretty low profit cost right there. And when you add to it the cost for working with a third-party delivery company, they really could do it only to keep their brand out there and to continue serving the country. National Restaurant Association estimates that between March, April, and May of 2020, sales will be declined by 225 billion pesos. So, but beyond that loss of sales, many smaller and independent-owned restaurants are focused simply on survival, of course, and owners are worried about being forced to close their doors permanently. So they really need to find ways to keep their staff working for them to be able to survive and to sustain the company. The food industry employs more than 15 million people in the entire Philippines. And many of them have either already lost their jobs or are worried about losing their jobs, but 80% of the staff had been laid off. So restaurant in particular are incredibly capital intensive business, meaning it costs a lot of money just to keep them running, and it's hard to budget for an environment where everyone is allowed to leave their homes again, because again, nobody know how people will feel about being in public with a still present threat from COVID-19. So maybe the biggest source of anxiety of the restaurant owners in the midst of this crisis, will the customer ever come back? And the biggest challenge is that, is this going to be enough? And on the demand, when we're able to turn the lights on, it is really important to be in touch with your most loyal customers and making ways as possible for them to find you and to order from you. Being engaged with the customers in social media has been big because social media nowadays is a very powerful tool in promoting and connecting with a lot of people from different places. So food industries around the country are facing a lot of challenges right now, and many of them needs They pivot their own businesses to stay afloat, and some are unfortunately needing to close their doors for good. Yet, food industries, as well as we all know, are the backbone of our economy and our communities, and many of these businesses are actually stepping up to be in service of others, to be in service to the communities and neighborhoods we live in. So that ends my discussion. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Sir Kevin. Although the food delivery apps don't really help much in the profits, like Sir Kevin said, it supports and sustains them. So Filipinos love to eat, like me. We're glad that food can now be ordered, paid for, and delivered at home. So kudos to the restaurant and delivery frontliners that we have. So again, thank you very much, Sir Kevin, for that presentation. So let me introduce you to our second speaker. She is a cum laude graduate of the BSBA Business Management Honors Program of the Ateneo Naga University. She was a consistent scholar student during her entire college years. She's also a completer of the Ateneo Center for Organization Research and Development Foundation on Organizational Development course. Currently, she sets the overall direction, management, and leadership towards effective strategic communications, public and external relations of the Ateneo de Naga University as the Director of the Office of Communication and External Relations. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Bernie Aton-Poliquit.
Thank you for the introduction, Ms. Dimple. Good morning to our keynote speaker, Sir Dexter, Mama Lou, my co-speakers, classmates, and our participants. The impact of COVID-19 to education and how we recalibrated our system will continue to affect change in education and our students for years. But I hope to capture the major points just in 15 minutes. So you will see that there are some inputs that I will be just focusing in general with the experience of academe, relating the experience of DepEd and also of CHED, particularly for basic education and higher education. Okay. My talk will mainly focus on the impacts of COVID-19 to education, challenges encountered due to COVID-19, and what were the responses in order to education to continue amidst this pandemic. So these are the contents of my presentation. Okay, let me go through the three major impacts. The COVID-19 pandemic has created the largest disruption of education system in history, same as what have been shared by Kevin, affecting nearly 1.6 billion learners in more than 190 countries and also in all continents. In the Philippines, when the ECQ was imposed by the government in March 2020, it affected over 20 million Filipino learners across academic levels, which have to stay at home and comply with the government's quarantine measures. So during this time, especially for the parents, for the children, and also for the students in higher education, and both in also in basic ed, we've experienced that the semester or the school year was not completed. So the focus during that time was for the completion of the requirements. And as much as we would like them to experience the graduation, the moving up years, these were the experiences that were not particularly savored by the students. So during the time, there were some schools that had online graduation and some just had their certificates delivered to their homes. So this is an impact even to the lives of the students themselves. And also in this year, enrollment stands at 77% of the previous academic year. So this highlights the serious negative impact of pandemic to the students and to the education. Next impact. face-to-face interaction and mass gatherings are prohibited. So both basic ed and higher education institutions, public and private, have also had to adjust to the new situation where the face-to-face interaction and mass gatherings are prohibited. When the restrictions on the movements of people, the need to practice social distancing and prohibition of mass gatherings, community engagement, internships, practicum activities, and other forms of experiential learning methods can no longer be employed for as long as the pandemic exists. With that impact, this presents an opportunity for the academic community to innovate and develop alternative teaching and strategies that will allow for a more conducive learning environment given this limitation. So this impact to education actually made the road to a new development and also implementation of the flexible learning system, which I will also discuss later. On the as Secretary Briones said in DepEd, education must continue even in times of crisis, whether it may be calamity, disaster, emergency, quarantine, or even war. And also for CHED, deployment of available flexible learning and other alternative modes of delivery in lieu of campus learning must also be adopted. So now, let me go through the 3 challenges. Okay. One of the major challenges that we need to consider during this pandemic is the situation and context of the learners. With the said impact, challenges were met as well during the pandemic. And we needed to hurdle with the schools and learners and navigate how we can proceed with the new school year. So this situation of the learners that we saw were capacity to continue schooling, particularly influenced by the capacity also of the family or the family income. So they also needed to have laptops, gadgets, internet access. Distance from school to is also considered for module development. And of course, we also need to consider the mental health of students and also the teachers in adapting to this change. And to highlight the challenge on the online courses or online classes, citing data from the National Telecommunications Commission or NTC, the DepEd said that in December 2019, only 67% of the Philippine population have access to internet. And this is needed to be considered in the implementation of alternative learning systems. And also we've seen in the news that numerous social media posts have gone viral showing that Filipino students needed to climb trees, even climb mountains just to get a good signal in the internet, a good signal for internet. And also you'll see that there are parents assisting their children in their modules and expressing also that the limitations of their siblings, their parents, and even the students in understanding their modules and also their classwork on their own is a bit difficult. So distance learning has caused a lot of concerns even for families, particularly also especially those who cannot afford the tools needed for it. But of course, you'll also see that there are some efforts within the Philippine community that fortunately there were efforts from different schools, alumni groups, and also non-government organizations to assist those who are in great need for the gadgets and also see that there were some people sponsoring students to receive the gadgets that they need in order to adapt to the new learning system. And then when we looked at after looking at the students' capacity and that their context, we also need to understand the challenge of the educators themselves. So the capacities of educations need also to be checked or assessed. From the confines of their homes, teachers and administrators were put to the task of revising and adapting syllabi and requirements as they shifted to alternative or remote teaching modalities, both to synchronous and asynchronous. So for DepEd, there was a reality check on the lack of books and needed to update books, which resulted to module development and printing, which were a bit rushed. Also, touching on the concern of budget constraint. So there were a lot of preparations needed by the government and also by the private sectors, that it moved the opening of classes to October, particularly for the government schools. The private schools were able to, some of them were able to open classes in June, and those who have set their opening of classes in August were able to to open their classes in August. So readiness for both online and modular classes need to be assessed and need to be addressed as well. And of course, we also need to understand that there are existing policies that are fit only for face-to-face classes, face-to-face learning. So from this, you see that the Philippines does not have a national policy dealing directly with online platforms such as what they call the massive open online courses, open distance e-learning, and open educational resources. So while there are laws like the Open Distance Learning Act of 2014, which provides legal basis for funding for such platforms, they are not enough. And some national policies also will have to be put in place to sustain the growth, because we see that this online and flexible learning is not going to stop when the pandemic stops. This is the mode, the new normal of education. So now let me focus on the response after the impact and the challenges that we've encountered. One of the response is to implement, of course, the flexible learning system. I think everyone knows here that even in the graduate school, we are implementing the flexible learning system. We have synchronous and asynchronous classes. So even for basic education and higher education, this is what is being done. And for the limitations of other sectors, they only do module education, through the module rather. So this flexible learning system needed to be implemented immediately. So there were a lot of transitions, adjustments. During the first few months, there were a lot of evaluations that needed to be done so that improvements are made for the experiences, particularly of the students. So DepEd sets a distance learning approach that utilizes three methods: delivery of printed modules to students, access to DepEd Commons. DepEd Commons is actually accessible also through Facebook. This is an online educational platform for DepEd, which DepEd developed to support alternative modes of learning. And lastly, the delivery of lessons or self-learning modules via radio and television. So flexible learning system was also employed especially for the higher education, where students and teachers had access to electronic devices and reliable internet connections. Learning management systems such as Canvas, Moodle, Blackboard, and applications like Google Hangout, Zoom, and Skype were used. But where students had limited access to computers or unreliable access to internet, teachers and students used smartphones or text messages, notes and material. They text the notes and materials and forward it maybe through Facebook also, email, and also Twitter. And also in some instances, this arrangement becomes unstable, and some universities had to suspend remote or online classes because the uneven socioeconomic status of students affected their access to the modalities of learning. So also concerns regarding the mental health of both students and teachers affected that uncertainty and became another reason to suspend online courses. But if you look at how the school adapted flexible learning, you will also need to see how the other operation system of the schools were made in order to support that particular experience for the students. Even for the start of recruitment alone, from the traditional recruitment talks and school visits, one has to move as well to online school campaign and social media based ads. So you will see that in the social media, there are a lot of campaign materials being posted by different schools because this is now the venue or the channel in order to reach the target market. So enrollment also was implemented online from the application, assessment of the student, enlistment, and up to the payment of tuition fees. And also, if you will remember, even entrance exams or qualifying exams for freshmen were also canceled. So they only do the application through online submission of the forms and necessary documents. So use of learning management system also like Google Classroom, Aralinks, Moodle, and other platforms were used. So from the classroom to cyberspace or modules, of course, the evaluation and assessment of grading of students were also through the system. So this is how the teachers evaluate their students and also how the students see their evaluation from the teachers. And also, for schools like Ateneo, where formation is also a very important pillar for education, formation activities are also done online. So we maximize online platforms for the retreats and also recollections, not only for students and for employees. And also, psychosocial assistance can be provided through students through online counseling from the guidance counselors. So the flexible learning system, along with the support activities to implement this, is actually the one being experienced by the stakeholder. So most of the time, the students and the parents are not able to see the backroom operation of the schools. So the operating system management of the schools were also reset, were also adjusted in order to adapt to this particular learning mode. And of course, we need to take also the consideration that the restrictions prevent them from some of our teachers from going to the schools. So they also do their preparations and classes at home. So in the challenges, I've also mentioned the need to check and assess the capacities of teachers. One of the main response of the education sector is primarily training and capacity building for educators and administrators. So free training and capacity building for faculty members on flexible learning were done. So they had online trainings, module development trainings. They also had trainings in making presentations and also trainings also in doing the online classes. So in higher education, we're involved in enhancing the capacities and the competencies of the members of the academe, professional groups, and general public share their knowledge, skills, and expertise on relevant topics. So training activities, mentoring sessions, webinars were organized by various colleges and universities using Zoom and Skype. There are also clusters of university, particularly here in Bicol, where some schools like Ateneo help other schools also in order to adapt to the flexible learning system online. So since Ateneo has been also implementing blended learning even before pandemic, we also assisted other schools in trying to adapt to, for example, what we also do in Google Classroom, we also train them in how to do it. So topics covered in these activities include online teaching, biosafety, COVID-19, and information on COVID-19, and also psychosocial first aid and support to students and faculty. So student, teachers, staff, and alumni initiated various projects and activities to solicit and extend support and resources to ensure the safety of the workers and also the safety of the students. So in general, for this response, some of the retooling activities were conducted within the institution. So webinars on Google Classroom, online trainings, and online module developments were conducted, just to sum up that particular aspect. Okay, lastly, for the response, there is a need and also some amendments for new policies to respond to the needs of the learners, especially for the 3.5 million tertiary level students enrolled in approximately 2,400 higher education institutions. The higher education institutions in the country have implemented proactive policies for continuance of education despite the pandemic. These policies include modified forms of online learning that aim to facilitate student learning activities. There were also changes in the policies for internship, particularly for nursing students and medical students. There were some changes in the policies for that. So online learning might also be in terms of synchronous as well, or real-time lectures, and time-based outcomes are need to be assessed. And in this particular section, there was also changes in terms of the assessment of students. So for example, in the guidelines of the classes, attendance is considered to be not included in the assessment, but before, attendance is one of the factors considered for grading. But considering that the online classes would entail need for internet, and of course we know that here in the Philippines that is a big concern, that is also being considered. And the schools had to review also their regulations. So there is a need to rethink the very nature of education itself. The government should create and implement concrete policies that will support the new breed of distance education. So educators in turn need to innovate to ensure that education remains inclusive and accessible, and that distance learning is not limited to pure online learning. So, for example, guided by the CHED COVID-19 advisories, accompanied by the IATF guidelines, the 2020 intersession classes were held with provisions for class schedules adapted to the situation. So, additional academic guidelines were also provided for the intersession and for the new semesters, and which were later revised and released as an interim guidelines for academic policies and guidelines for flexible learning, particularly in the school year 2020 and 2021. So, and several revisions were also made. And then moving forward, the Philippines need a clear set policies and guidelines based on innovative education framework. This requires a careful and sincere assessment of the country's readiness to offer learning programs that demand more than the traditional requirements. As the Philippines ventures into a new mode of learning, several factors need to be considered. In summary, that includes teacher capacity, situation and context of the learners, and the efficiency of the learning environment. This, of course, on top of the most obvious issues of internet speed, cost of materials, and mode of delivery. The best way to move forward is to take a step back and design a strategy that engages teachers, students, parents, school administrators, and the technology-based companies. The collaborative response on the collective vision is the kind of creative solution that is needed in this pandemic. So, as a closing, no, for flexible learning system, this is the new normal. May it, I hope, no, that soonest time we will end the pandemic. This new normal and flexible learning system will not go back to our previous face-to-face mode of learning. So this mode of learning and technology is the new and the now of education and beyond pandemic. So the learnings that we had in this experience will also transform education now and for the future. So that ends my presentation. If you have questions and also sharings, you may comment them on the platform that you are using. So thank you very much. And these are my references.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bernie Aton-Poliquit, for the insights on the challenges and the response of the education industry's approach to coping up with the new normal. So before we proceed with our final speaker, I believe that Mr. Dexter Cuajotor will be leaving already. So before we let you go, Sir Dexter, I would like to read the questions directed to you po.
Sure, Kat.
We have a question from Marshall Murillo. So it says, as we look ahead, it is clear that public-private cooperation will continue to be a critical component of pandemic preparedness and response. So more public sector entities should recognize the traditional and non-traditional partners, as well as their unique contributions and capabilities. Can we suggest on how do we ensure that public sector entities learn to effectively engage with non-traditional partners and incorporate them into their plans for preparedness and response? So should
Yeah.
I repeat that, sir?
No need. Thank you, Kat, for reading that. Hello to you, Marshall, and great that you're able to recognize how important it is to have the public-private partnership these days. On your question on how to ensure, basically it will really be up to the local government unit, the executive level, who will have to create that community where they're constantly engaging with, for example, the business partners, and ensure that you get to get insights and also get help in terms of resources on how to one plan and to uh, act quickly on the crisis. So for example, let me give you an example on how that works in the city of Iloilo. um, well, maybe last year you were able to see posts about Iloilo as dubbed as the Wakanda, but it's not really that we're not perfect. Because I'm currently here in Iloilo, I have seen how the relationship of the local government unit is strengthened uh, constantly by doing engagements, meaning they call on representatives of certain sectors, and there usually there are regular dialogues. There's cadence to one get commitment to no to get commitment to of offering resources, meaning for example hotels who would offer resources when they need additional rooms for um, during that time for quarantine or for additional beds. You have businesses who just contribute. You mentioned about non-traditional, and if non-traditional you mean technology, that's also one thing that can be done, as not just to survive a crisis, but really also to generate employment and the creation, for example, with tech companies. Partnership with tech companies allowed creation of apps for contact tracing. So those things. To ensure, we'll really have to depend with our government leaders. So how can we ensure? Maybe we have to choose wisely when we get the vote in the next election. So we choose the leaders who will make sure that they will strengthen their partnership with the private sectors, so we all can win together.
Thank you, Sir Dexter. We have another question here po from me. So
Sure.
I would just like to ask her, because in this pandemic, micro, small, medium enterprises were directly affected. So in the banking sector, was any new were there kind of loans formulated specifically to help them during this pandemic to recover? And if ever po, are there any loans that would support new types of businesses? Because I believe when you apply for a loan, a business loan, you should have like 3 years at least of the business running in a profitable manner, sir. So yun po, that's the question. So
Very
if
good
ever po are
question, Kat. And thanks for that question. Definitely, yes, we have programs for existing clients affected. I personally handle retail loans, but for clients affected by the pandemic, for example, whose source of income used to be maybe under the travel industry or food industry, and now they're having difficulties paying for their loans. We have existing programs, we have restructuring programs for that will allow them to manage their payments for the time being. So what are these? This could be a combination of these pay breaks, term extension to lower the monthly amortization, um, interest paying for a certain period. So we're very open. The bank has a robust structure to assist these clients, and we in fact for certain cases where we relax, no, the requirements to be submitted, especially during income verification. So we looked at in other measures of verifying source of income, because we also need to establish a path to recovery to make sure that there really is a chance for these sectors or these clients to recover. On the business loan, we have also a very strong business banking team, and yes, there are new programs available. They also have a restructuring program for existing clients. For new ones, we're encouraged. There are a lot of various uh, loan variants, no, available with our business banking group, particularly to assist the MSMEs to recover during this time.
Thank you, sir. I mean, I'm happy that the banking sector is really doing something to help the MSMEs. So for you guys who want to put up your new businesses or those MSMEs that are affected, you can go to the bank of Sir
The
Dexter and
VPI,
Miss
yeah.
Ivy, BBI. I'm
And
not
for
sure if
those
it
who
can be
need a new
mentioned.
car and a new home, please have BPI in mind. We continue to accept applications.
So thank you very much, Sir Dexter, for your time today. May I now call on Dr. Malu Barceliano, our professor, the program director of MPA and MBA programs, and the director of the Center for the Local Governance, to present Sir Dexter his certificate.
So at this point, we shall have the awarding of the Certificate of Appreciation to our keynote speaker. So allow me to read the citation. The Ateneo University Graduate School Master in Business Administration Program, the MBA 233 Operations and Systems Management, in coordination with the Center for Local Governance, awards the Certificate of Appreciation to Dexter Lloyd C. Cuajotor for generously imparting his knowledge and valuable insights as the keynote speaker during the webinar entitled Reset, All Set, Remaking Operation Systems in Response to the COVID-19 Pandemic, held on May 8, 2021 at the Ateneo University, Naga City. Signed, yours truly, and our Dean of the Graduate School, Michael A. Cuesta, PhD. So, Sir Dexter, here's your Certificate of Appreciation. Can we give Sir Dexter a big round of applause, virtual round of applause, please?
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thanks to all of you. Thanks for all those who tuned in today.
Okay, so on behalf of the university, sir, maraming salamat for sharing significant inputs relative to the topic. So just mabalos po.
Maraming salamat. God bless everybody. Take care and stay safe. Bye, guys.
Thank you, sir. Bye po. Okay. So our last resource speaker is a graduate of Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering from the Bicol University. He graduated as magna cum laude and bagged the Most Outstanding Graduate of the College, Most Outstanding Student of the College, and Most Outstanding Alumni Award of his batch. He was also awarded with the Academic, Leadership, and Service Excellence Award for BS Chemical Engineering. He is an accomplished project management professional with 12 years of significant experience in geothermal industry, having served as a facilities engineer and up to his current position as a manager in the engineering department of the Philippine Geothermal Production Company Incorporated in Tiwi, Albay. Let us all welcome Mr. Jakechris Sicad.
Thank you, Ma'am Dimple, for that generous introduction. So allow me just to share my screen. Okay, again, good morning. So as mentioned by Miss Bernie earlier, the COVID-19 pandemic basically did provide us some insights and lessons on how to move forward given the scenario that we are facing 2021 onwards. And if you would look at energy as an as a sector, as a business sector, you will see that majority of our operations are primarily to support other organizations, business organizations, both in public and the private sectors. And what is important is that energy is basically driving most of the industrial revolutions and the technological advances that we have witnessed for the past several decades. And this had been basically hampered with the COVID-19 pandemic. And it is in this context that we will be presenting the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic into the power demand and the energy sector, both in the context of the Southeast Asia and the Philippines in general. And during our discussion, we will focus on the impact to the energy sector as well as how it will provide some momentum with regards to the decarbonization of the fuel mix of the Philippines and what are our long-term strategy in terms of developing a resilient energy infrastructure moving forward. So this has been mentioned earlier. We basically saw the great lockdown of 2020 and how it impacted the global GDP contraction. So we've experienced as much as 9.5% GDP contraction in the Philippines, and that's the worst since the monitoring of the GDP since 1947. In the electricity sector, most of the demand for electricity had been basically declining, primarily because of the very decline in the utilization from the industrial and the commercial sectors. There's an increase in the residential consumption, primarily because of the imposed lockdowns and the closure of borders and the establishment of work from home setup. And most of this essentially provide for the increase in the consumption in the residential sector. But this is not enough to offset the overall consumption in the last several years. So that's why there's still a depression with regards to the electricity demand for the economy in 2020 and into 2021 as well. And this has ripple effects for energy sector participants, such as the workforce. So most of the workforce has to also practice work from home. And then there's concerns on the supply chain, providing materials that are needed for the base business operations. Most of these energy players has to implement some safety protocols just to ensure that the base business is functioning. And there's this now difficulty in forecasting demand, primarily because of the varying degrees of community quarantines that we are experiencing for the last several months. So the more that we implement the stringent community quarantine procedures, it basically lowers the demand during this particular uh, schedule. So that's a very difficult dilemma for most energy players on how to predict the demand for a particular uh, month, considering the imposition of these community quarantines. And as a result of the GDP contraction, most of the energy prices has been declining as well. So the impact, of course, is most of these energy companies are experiencing a downturn with regards to their revenues. In general, there's basically some protection with regards to renewable energy players. So that includes solar, wind, geothermal. Most of these are primarily protected with income when it comes to the volume of sales. And this is primarily attributable to the fact that they are um, priority with regards to dispatch in the market. And what's worse with the power sector is that there are inherent vulnerabilities for which we are most of the times are prone to. So as we have experienced in several years, the last 10 years from 2011 to 2021 is actually the most dangerous or the most cost incurring in terms of threats and natural calamities that we are experiencing. And this has increased in severity, both in severity and the frequency. And this impacts our energy infrastructure. So every time that we have typhoons, most of our electrical facilities are down, and we expend a lot of money just for the response and recovery for these facilities. So you can just imagine how it hinders our capability to provide more infrastructures that are adaptive to these natural calamities. And moving forward, the COVID-19 pandemic puts another compounding effect on these natural threats. So just imagine last year, we experienced a parade of typhoons, at least 3 typhoons in the Bicol region. And during that time, we're also experiencing surges in the number of COVID-19 positives. So that's where we are saying that the COVID-19 pandemic has a compounding effect. And then there's also the concern on the power sector financial health. There's some difference in every country on how they operate the energy sector. So there are companies that are operating wherein subsidies are being provided by the government. Some companies are doing bundling with regards to generation, transmission, and the overall sales to the end consumers. But for some, there are participations of the government. And this basically provides some limitations on how spending can be done for the needed investment on the infrastructure. And aside from that, there's also a growing energy demand for the Southeast Asia and the Philippines as well with regards to cooling requirement. So we have seen an increasing demand for these countries, and the Southeast Asian nations must develop strategies on how they can meet this demand for cooling infrastructure. So for the power sector vulnerabilities, we also have some concerns on the fuel mix and the fossil fuel resilience. So most of the consumption of the Philippines and the world in general is primarily focused on still on fossil fuels, consuming around 60% of our current consumption. And that's basically a great concern with regards to reducing air pollution and increasing air quality. In fact, the Philippines is and other Southeast Asian countries is part of the initiative of decarbonizing most of our sources of energy come 2050. And in terms of impact on the power sector, so we've experienced declining demand in the industrial and the commercial sector, and increased in the residential ones. And this basically provides some difficulty with regards to the consumers. So most of us are basically have to pay our consumption during the work from home setup. And that's why the government, as you can remember, they have to provide some relief for the delay of the payment. So this has been imposed for most of energy players during this particular time. And the mitigations that we can implement moving forward is a development of policies for energy efficiency. So this can include development of improved building codes, as well as cooling requirement standards that we can utilize in order for us to better predict peak demand for the residential sector. And we need also to modernize the electrical facilities that we have currently. And then we do need to have some sector reforms. It is better to have infrastructures and organizations that are handling these facilities in private ownership, primarily because they are not dependent on subsidies from the government, and they can provide needed upgrades moving forward. And then we can also institute subsidy reforms with regards to how we can avoid as much as possible utilization of fossil fuels. And this is the four aspects where we can address this concern on the power demand. And then the next three are related to the contracts and investments. So these are related to fossil fuel contracts. So we have contracts with suppliers like natural gas that we do not have much flexibility. So we need to do some contract restructuring there and renegotiation so that the priorities will be the clean energy sources such as solar, wind, and geothermal. And this is anchored as well to the next goal of air quality and emissions that are a concern, as mentioned in the previous slide. So we can couple our air quality goal with renewable energy policies. And then with regards to our workforce, we can develop business continuity planning, so we can ensure that we have a dedicated workforce that we can tap in terms when time comes for emergency. So this emergency management procedures and business continuity plans should be established in order for us to continue our business despite the threats of the pandemic and other emergencies. So how did COVID-19 impact the clean energy transition? So a part of the goal of the world moving forward is to transition into the utilization of clean energy. So this includes reduction of consumption of fossil fuels and reliance to more appropriate renewable sources like wind, solar, and geothermal. So in terms of the renewable energy generation, it's not that affected, as mentioned earlier, primarily because of the prioritization in market dispatch. For the project development, there's inherent slowing down of the developments of renewable energy projects, primarily due to the fact that we have some supply chain issues. But for new projects that we have now, most of these projects have basically benefited from the COVID-19 pandemic. And finally, we have some concerns on the fossil fuel prices and how this impacts renewable energy competitiveness. So the fossil fuel prices are declining. So the same is true for renewable energy. And this impacts the ability of renewable companies to respond to facility upgrades that we need moving forward, as well as expansion that we deemed are necessary in order to support our clean energy transition goals. So these are just some of the opportunities, particularly because there's that large public sentiment moving forward. So we have seen some news on how the lockdowns have basically improved air quality, particularly on some highly populated cities. And this provides us insights on how we can develop business continuity plans, as I've mentioned earlier, and how we can use clean energy for economic recovery by focusing on geothermal, solar, wind, and other hydro as well, and other renewable energy sources. And moving forward, the main focus of the energy sector right now should be on the resilient power sector planning, the resilience of critical facilities which we need to power up. So this includes hospitals and other government offices that are critical to the response during emergencies or natural catastrophes. So it is a normal experience, no? When we experience typhoons, most of electrical facilities are usually damaged, and we don't have the ability to provide instant power, or at least as a granted power to um, critical infrastructures like hospitals, emergency management teams of the local government sector. So that's a focus that we need to have moving forward. And then companies need to have a financial resilience. So what we mean by this is that most of these companies should have a financial reserve in terms of response. So that is a very important component of how we can build long-term energy sector resiliency moving forward. And finally, with regards to clean energy and power system resilience, we need to have a more diverse source of energy, not just focusing on fossil fuel, which is still a large chunk of our consumption. And we need to have a distributed generation focusing on critical facilities that we can support moving forward. And finally, we need to institute energy efficiency, as I mentioned earlier, and to manage the demand aspect of the electrical and the power requirement, both of the commercial, industrial, and the residential sector. So this basically sums up my presentation. So just to highlight that we have some improvements moving forward for the energy sector, and we need some improvements on how we do business continuity planning, and how we can move from reliance on the fossil fuel and then move to clean energy for the years to come. So good morning again, everyone.
Thank you, Sir Jakechris Sicad, for sharing the resiliency efforts of the energy sector. So we will now proceed to the open forum. I will read the questions you type in the comment section of the YouTube and Facebook pages, and the speakers will address it directly. So for Sir Kevin, can you give some tips on how the online sellers of food can thrive in this pandemic? Sir Kevin. Okay. I think maybe he went on a bathroom break. I will read the question first for Sir J. Chris. What will be the impact of the responses of the energy sector to COVID in relation to customer experience, particularly in the recent times that there are a lot of power interruptions and typhoons?
Thank you for that very wonderful question. So I think that's a concern for everybody, no? So even that's an annoyance that we experience every day or every other week. Just to provide context, that this interruptions that are happening is mostly a response of providing a more adaptive electrical facilities moving forward. So this is not really just for the sake of it. So these are focused on maintenance activities And as I mentioned earlier, we're experiencing peak demands in residential consumption. So this requires improvement as well um, doon sa mga electrical facilities that are dedicated for residential. So you can imagine residential and industrial players rely on energy sector using a different electrical facilities. So we are not dependent on the public facilities that we have that you can see uh, mostly on a daily basis. So these are dedicated to residential sector. So for malls and um, hotels, large establishments, they do have a dedicated electrical facilities for them. So this brownouts, blackouts that we're experiencing, these are all response in order for us to have in the long term be able to meet the demand that we're experiencing because of online classes, working from home. And as you mentioned, as we mentioned earlier, this is something that we see that will not change for at least several years moving forward. So there's that need to improve these electrical facilities. So these are being considered, as I mentioned earlier, and these are part of the plan in order for us to improve providing services for most of our consumers. Ma'am Dimple?
Thank you, Sir Jake. I hope the question was answered. Sir, for Sir Kevin, there's a question for you po, sir. Can you give some tips on how the online sellers of food can thrive in this pandemic?
Oh, so though it depends on which product you will sell and which segments in which countries, I mean, which you will be targeting, I mean, your market, and so many on. In general, I think you just give it a try. If you succeed, that's great. Expand your business then. But if things don't work out, you can draw it as a lesson without much cost, and for certain that will help you nail your business more properly to the next times. I have a friend who opened an IG shop selling her secondhand apparels. Though she failed for the first time due to lack of experiences and lack of markets, still it is a great lesson for her to try another one, because e-commerce and online selling market segment will continue its impressive growth well into 2021 and beyond because of the effect of this pandemic. Well, in my opinion, online selling is your future. Would like to do eight to five jobs instead of relaxing at home and managing tasks in business. So the world is shaping into digitalization, and e-commerce has evolved greatly in passing years. So be your own boss and start selling online today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Kev. The question here is for Ma'am Bernie. So, hi, ma'am. Are there systems in place already if ever the face-to-face or limited face-to-face will be allowed by CHED or DepEd?
Thank you for that question, Ms. Dimple. Actually, the university, I can say for the university now, is already preparing for face-to-face for the nursing. Because as you know, the CHED had already released a memo and advisory regarding that the face-to-face classes and also internship will be allowed for medical courses. So that would be for medicine and nursing. So as of now, the university is preparing for that, and the systems that will be in place will be documented and submitted to CHED for their approval. So right now, the nursing department is preparing that. So even though there would be face-to-face, a lot also would be online online system for flexible learning will still be implemented, but of course the campuses will be prepared for that, no. So Having said that, I cannot say yet the details because that's still being discussed within the administrators. But for sure, safety of the students and the teachers will be prioritized. So the safety precautionary measures will be implemented. The limitation of number of students will also be adopted in order to have physical distancing. And also safety measures will be in place, particularly for internship in the hospital of our nursing students, and for schools that has medicine, that will also be done. But I think unless the DepEd releases a guidelines for the possible face-to-face for basic education, systems will also need to be in place, and for sure schools will be ready for it. As of now, there are conversations of possible face-to-face for the next school year, but I think with the limitations for the vaccine rollout, I don't think that would be possible for this coming school year, unless again that would be for the higher education.
Thank you, Miss Bernie. I have another question for Sir Jake from Miss Carla Doran. So, systems loss is always included in the electric bill. Is the decline in the consumption of commercial and industrial sector part of it?
Can you repeat again the question on Dimple?
Okay. Systems loss is always included in the electric bill. Is the decline in the consumption of the commercial and industrial sector part of it?
The system losses, which is basically being charged to us, is related to the transmission. So it's not really part of the decline in the consumption for the industrial and the commercial sector. In fact, most of the key players in the energy sector did experience decline in revenue and sales. So there's no cost recovery when it comes to that particular decline in consumption.
Hello, sorry. I was on mute. Sir Jake, there's another question for you po. Since
Okay.
in since in the Bicol region there's always a typhoon, so are there general plans on mass production or distribution of renewable energy sources like solar panels, especially in Bicol, so that if there's a mass production, of course, the price will be lower?
Again, these are all part of the strategic plans. No? So there are considerations on expanding our renewable energy resources. So that includes solar, and looking at, as I mentioned earlier, I did not mention it, but the Bicol region is basically strategic in terms of geothermal power. So we were the pioneer for the geothermal utilization in Southeast Asia back in 1979. So that basically just shows how valuable our resource are in terms of geothermal energy. So yes, there's that plan to still expand renewable energy and to provide it, as I mentioned earlier, to provide a more granular approach to how we want to deliver the produced energy. So that is very important, because as they have mentioned, it can probably lower down the electrical consumptions and the prices moving forward. So we want that more competition, that's one, and we want that more capacity, that's second point, I think, that I'm raising.
Okay, thank you, sir. So far, there's no more posted questions in the FB and YouTube live stream. So at this junction, may we request Dr. Malu Barciliano to give the closing remarks? to award the certificates to our resource speakers.
So thank you, Dean Paul. So we shall have the awarding of our certificate of appreciation to our resource speakers this morning. So again, allow me to read the citation. Ateneo Dinaga University Graduate School, Master in Business Administration Program, MBA 233, Operations and Systems Management in coordination with the Center for Local Governance, awards the Certificate of Appreciation to Kevin O. Abiog for generously imparting his knowledge and valuable insights as a resource speaker during the webinar entitled Reset, All Set, Remaking Operation Systems in Response to the COVID-19 Pandemic, held on May 8, 2021 at the Ateneo Dinaga University, Naga City. Signed, yours truly, and our Dean of the Graduate School, Michael A. Cuesta, PhD. Okay, so Kevin, this is your certificate of appreciation. So, Kevin. Okay, so maraming salamat, Kevin Abiog. So the same certificate of appreciation is awarded to Bernie at Aton-Poliquit. So Bernie, here's your certificate of appreciation.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, so maraming salamat. And of course, we also have the same certificate of appreciation to Jakechris P. Sicad. Jakechris?
Thank you, Ma'am Malu.
Okay, so maraming salamat. So let's give the resource speakers a big round of virtual applause. So maraming salamat. So as we put to close this webinar entitled Reset, All Set, Remaking Operation Systems in Response to the COVID-19 Pandemic, allow me to share with you this statement from Steve Jobs, citing, "If you define the problem correctly, you almost have the solution." To this, we all cannot help but agree. The COVID-19 pandemic has changed consumer behavior, attitudes toward work operations, and even some views about society itself that allowed us to look across industries and sectors at how knowledge increasingly, though not exclusively, generated by advanced analytics technology, which can be used to improve the way we tackle challenges caused by this COVID-19 pandemic. It reshaped what consumers buy and how they go about getting it. Thus, the challenge for many industries is to redesign and or remake the operating models to be resilient enough to meet new consumer demands. This was concretized by the presentations made today by our keynote and resource speakers who are from banking, energy, educational, and food sectors. The need to embrace the digital transformation of the businesses remain critically important as it is being shaped by the COVID-19 crisis. At this point, allow me to express gratitude in behalf of the Ateneo Dinaga University Graduate School and the Center for Local Governance to our keynote speaker, Mr. Dexter Lloyd, Cuajotor, Assistant Vice President of the Bank of the Philippine Islands, and to our resource speakers, namely Mr. Jakechris P, Facilities Engineering Manager of the Philippine Geothermal Production Company, Ms. Bernie Aton-Poliquit, Director of the Office of Communications and External Relations of the Ateneo Dinaga University, and Mr. Kevin Abiog, the General Manager from PPI Holdings Incorporated. To our moderator and the MBA 233 Operations and Systems Management class for patiently attending to the details of this webinar, and of course to all of you, our dear participants, for your participation this morning. So maraming salamat and good morning, everyone.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Malu Barceliano. So at this junction, we will be pasting the evaluation link on the comment section of both the YouTube and Facebook accounts so you can access them. We are also flashing it on the screen for your reference. May I remind everyone to please accomplish the evaluation form completely so that you can receive your e-certificates. Please take note that for you to receive your e-certificates, you must, 1, be registered, have a confirmed attendance, completely filled out the evaluation form, and then after the 3 steps, the e-certificate will be sent to you by email. So thank you, Ma'am Malu, and thank you for everyone for your active participation. May I now call on Ms. Catherine Chancoco for the closing prayer.
Thank you, Ms. Dimple. So, let us pray in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dearest Lord, we thank you for having us gathered. Okay na. Sorry. Okay na. So, dearest Lord, we thank you for having us gathered together virtually through this activity. Thank you for the successful webinar and for having the privilege to attend a session with industry practitioners wherein our learning from this activity will surely be applied in the continuous new normal setup. May all our key takeaways from the session improve our lives and be applied in order to help those who are challenged in these trying times. We pray to you, Lord, to keep all our family and loved ones safe as the cases of COVID-19 virus increases. Through this we pray, our Father in heaven, holy be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread and forgive us our sins, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Saint Ignatius of Loyola, pray for us. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.